Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's study session. It's 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. Mr. Raines, do you want to set this up, or Scott, you're going to just take over?
Thank you, Mayor McFarland, members of the council. We're bringing to you this evening for presentation a package of proposed amendments to the city's personnel policy. Of course, the personnel policy is the document that brings structure to our relationship to our employees and contains all of the basics that are necessary to be a responsible municipal employer in the state of Arizona. And so what I've done is I've prepared a highlight summary sheet for you, and I'm going to be working from that, although you have the details. And as you reviewed the details, you know that the deletions were struck through and the additional language is underlined. So we'll just go through the list and stop me at any time if you have any questions along the way. The first item for consideration, the first item for presentation this evening is probably one of the major ones, and these are the highlights, not every one that's in the package. And that is proposed amendments to the city's employee appeal process. Our policy says that if we deal with an employee in a punitive way that involved demotion, suspension, or dismissal, those employees have what we call internal appeal rights, and they have the ability to file an appeal and have their appeal heard before our Personnel Advisory Board. Personnel Advisory Board has been around for a long time and is made up of 5 citizens appointed by the mayor and council, like many other boards and commissions, and they in turn elect a chair to guide the group. I should have noted that the last time we brought policy amendments to you was 3 years ago, so this isn't something we do with a lot of frequency, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But the Personnel Advisory Board has been around for a long time, and the good news is that I think 2017 was probably the last appeal that was filed and the last time the Personnel Advisory Board met together, so that's a really good thing. But what happens is, under our current system, is that the employee or his and her representative comes before the board, present their case, the city presents its case, the board deliberates, and then they provide a recommendation back to the city manager. Ours is a circular system like a lot of them are, and it's been litigated in Arizona. So the final authority on all these matters rests with the city manager. We're proposing in this policy amendment to replace the Personnel Advisory Board model with what's called a hearing officer model. And it's very common around the state of Arizona, particularly in today's time when it's really rare for an employee to present his or her appeal on their own, rather has an attorney that does that, and the city is represented by an attorney. And sometimes it's very difficult to ask a citizen advisory board and an elected chair to handle the dynamics of this quasi-judicial forum to manage the attorneys that are there. And so the hearing officer model basically says that we would appoint, with each appeal that comes forward, we would appoint a hearing officer, an administrative law judge, if you will. And these hearing officers are attorneys, many of them are retired judges. And there's actually a group that are submitted proposals under the state procurement contract that we could choose from. And there's lots of others that do these things all around the Phoenix area and around the state of Arizona. And so the hearing officer then would preside at the hearing and be able to manage all of that and hear the evidence that's presented. And the hearing officer then in turn would render a recommendation back to the city manager. Obviously, the strength of our process in anyone like this is that I don't recall that there's ever been a time when the city manager didn't accept and affirm the findings of the appeal board or the Personnel Advisory Board. And so we're putting an extra safeguard. And our proposal says that in order to make sure that we're as fair or perceived as fair as possible, when we appoint a hearing officer, we give the appealing employee, his representative, the opportunity to have one strike. They decide they didn't like that hearing officer, they could strike that hearing officer, and another one would be appointed. And so that's one of the largest things here. And having been through the process with a hearing officer and with the Personnel Advisory Board, having a judge, if you will, an attorney judge, listen to the case, the facts of the case, manage the courtroom, as it were, the proceedings in the hearing, And then to be able to write a concise and appropriate decision is a pretty important thing, and certainly the hearing officer model works really well at that.
Would there be an appellate process after he comes to a conclusion that would go to the city manager, or how would that work?
The city manager is the final authority at the end of the day. So the city manager receives the record of the hearing and reviews that, and then will render his decision, and his decision is final. Now, having said that, this is our internal appeal process, if you will. This is ours of the city. An employee has the opportunity to pursue his or her case in the court system, and with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission or the State Civil Rights Board, if that was something that they wanted to do. But our system is circular, and the recommendation comes back to the manager.
Scott, was there any input solicited or received from employee groups and associations?
This is our proposal that we're bringing to you this evening. We made a presentation before the employee engagement group, but no, I mean, typically we don't go out and put these things to a vote among our employee population.
Sure.
It's our responsibility to manage these things and to bring these proposals before you this evening.
Okay.
The next item that's on our highlight sheet there is under our fair employment process. This simply reflects what the law of the land is today. The U.S. Supreme Court issued a decision last year, a year before last, basically including sexual orientation and gender identity as protected groups under the law. And so we're simply amending our policy to reflect what the Supreme Court has said is the law of the land. The third item is a residency requirement, and you may or may not know that several years back, the Arizona legislature passed a bill that said a municipality or a governmental entity cannot enforce any residency requirements on uniformed police and fire, except at the highest levels of the organization. And so our policy is not valid in this area. It's preempted by state law. And so we're bringing a policy proposal that basically says, you know, if those uniformed public safety employees don't have to follow a residency policy, then none of our other employees should. Let's level the playing field. And so this policy basically takes our residency policy in that direction and then leaves with the city manager the ability to individually or sometimes collectively make decisions in relationship to imposing residence requirements. We could not ever do that with, again, uniformed police and fire up to the executive level. But if there was some reason that might come along, and we don't know what that would be today, that there was response time that was important, the city manager could then do that. And particularly with the executive leadership team, with his department directors, those are issues of negotiation. That's one of the issues of negotiation in relationship to coming to work. And so the policy proposal says that we're leveling the playing field and we're removing the current residency requirement for all city employees, except as might be dictated by the city manager.
So Scott, in the case of like the police, we can't require them to live in the city, but we also don't have to let them take their vehicle home, correct?
We have the ability to as far as the take-home program, that's totally ours.
Okay.
And we can set whatever standards that,
Because
and
we
it's very
require,
uncommon
we
to.
require those stay in the city, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was my only
So you
question.
want a city of Casa Grande police car up in
Right.
Glendale or wherever, so.
Thank you.
So that's our residency proposal to you.
Scott, so you're saying this is something we have to do?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So I guess I'm confused then. So, if we don't have to say that this is we don't have to make that a residency requirement, then you're just making the recommendation that we do?
The proposal recognizes that you may not impose any residency requirement on police officers, firefighters, and what have you. And it seems to us, it seems to me, that if the state legislature has seen it appropriate to remove that from those folks, those of our employees, they're usurping local control on that issue. then we should apply it across the board to our sanitation drivers and our parks maintenance
Okay.
workers and our secretaries.
Right.
But this is a proposal, there's nothing mandatory here. You can preserve this residency requirement for all other people
Okay.
if you'd like,
Okay.
okay?
Scott, just getting back to the appeal process, somebody that's unhappy with whatever Larry's decision is, can they go to court? How, is that available to them, or?
Yeah, the question is the nature of the appeal and the basis that the employee feels that he or she was not dealt with appropriately. Always have the ability to pursue that in court. Yeah. So the next item is our nepotism policy, and a couple of things here. Not a lot of people know that there's a nepotism policy that's imposed on us through state law. And so we incorporate by reference the provisions of that policy. We're also freshening our policy up. We define relative one time in our policy, and we apply it across the board for our bereavement leave and other kinds of issues. We're a little bit behind times, and so this proposal basically wants to recognize relationships that are not spousal, but are similarly close. And so we recognize the situation if somebody is in a committed relationship over a long period of time, that mirrors that kind of a close relationship. And so our nepotism provisions should apply there as well because of the issue of fairness and all things related to assignments and pay and all those kinds of things. So it just freshens up our nepotism policy a little bit. The next item speaks to the issue of recording. This is a new policy for us. And we know that in Arizona, we're a one-party state. So anybody can record any conversation as long as there's one party that knows it's being recorded. Occasionally, things will come up in the normal course and scope of things that it's really not a good idea to not have both parties knowledgeable about this, particularly in what we do. And so this basically imposes a restriction against an employee while at work, while on duty, in the normal course and scope of their employment, from recording someone else without their knowledge, except as may be approved by the city manager. And this is one of the policies that we're augmenting with an administrative directive. And very often what we have is we have the bare bones of it in our personnel policy, and then we flesh that out in administrative directive. And so we work with the city department directors and the city attorney to craft an administrative directive that speaks to all of the things that are coming to your mind right now. Police investigations, court, this meeting, and all those kinds of issues. And so we really work that policy over to make sure that we take into account all of the things that we would normally encounter, our employees would normally encounter. What it would prohibit is for somebody coming in, an employee coming in to meet with the city manager with a recorder in his or her pocket without any knowledge of the city manager and doing that recording. So it's something different from us, from what we've had in the past. We haven't had one in the past, but we think it makes sense for us in the long run, and I've been in some circumstances where it was kind of a big deal at the end of the day. The next one involves employee alcohol and drug testing. We've had a policy for a very long time in our city risk management manual about drug and alcohol testing, the things that we can do, and particularly it focuses on those employees that drive for us and are required to have a commercial driver's license. That's federal law, and we have to test half of the total pool every year for drugs and half of that half for both drugs and alcohol. What really brought this to the forefront for us and many others is the decriminalization of recreational marijuana in the state of Arizona. And so everybody's kind of made their way back to their policies to try to figure this out. So this will be the first time that we actually have a policy concerning drug and alcohol testing in the personnel policy. And this is another one of those that we're augmenting with an administrative directive. We had a lot of conversation about this, about how we can do what we need to do and yet respect people's rights, if you will, because recreational use of marijuana is not against the law in Arizona any longer. And so we've crafted an administrative policy that talks specifically, there's some concerns about post-accident testing, for example, but we set a standard that's very similar to the federal standard. There has to be disabled vehicles, injuries, fatalities, things like that in order for there to even be a chance of that. And as normal, we count on our officers or those law enforcement officers who are on the scene to make the judgment they're always going to be making about impairment. And so we worked this thing over 2-3 different incarnations, and so we're fairly satisfied that we have one right now that's going to work for us. But because this is new territory in relationship to recreational use of marijuana, we're going to be ready to make some changes if we need to down the road.
Is there a level of, that they can test, you can use so much marijuana, like alcohol, but if you use too much and you're not responsible driving or those type of things?
I'm going to ask the city attorney if you'd allow me, Mr. Powell, because he deals with this issue in city court all the time.
If I can get my microphone on, there we go. Mr. Powell, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Powell, there's really not right now a federally or even state recognized standard as far as like a certain level of THC. And the particular issue that we run into has to do with the manner of testing. So there are ways that you can look at active THC in the bloodstream when you do blood testing. And so that's what we do, for example, when we deal with DUI law, at least we have in the past. The problem is that the urinalysis that we normally do can't differentiate between the active and the inactive metabolites. So that's, you can't really tell whether the use was recent or otherwise. So what we do is we do have, and Mr. Barber can tell you, the ability to test via reasonable suspicion, just like we do with alcohol. If you see people who show signs of impairment, and we will be training our supervisors to recognize what those are. We have the ability, retain the ability to test for use of marijuana in those circumstances, but we're not going to be doing it in pre-employment testing for most positions, because if they used it 30 days prior, legal use, just like if they had had a drink 30 days before. So we're not doing that because you can't differentiate on whether it's active or inactive metabolites.
Scott, just a follow-up question, and I appreciate you answering all my questions this morning, you and Larry. But on this, I thought of one other thing. Based on what we have before us, was there any feedback from League of Cities and Towns, what other, areas was doing in this?
There is a listserv out there for HR directors that puts some of this stuff out. But the league did not weigh in on this in this particular area that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, you had a question?
Yeah, Scott, as part of the policy on a council member or director, the Pinal County Sheriff would do that investigation for suspected drug or alcohol use?
I think that any investigation that involves our police department would be done by another agency. By and large, the things that we would encounter with our other employees, would there be no prohibition against the city police department doing that. And we have, in fact, a couple of times have done that. We kind of rely on their, evaluating the specific circumstances, whether there's any conflict or not. But with a normal employee outside of the police department, I don't think there's any conflict that would create a situation where some outside agency would have to come in. And very often, it's very difficult for them to be able to respond in a timely way.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Scott. Thank you.
Okay. The next involves employee probation, and as it stands right now, all of our new employees serve a probationary period. Most of our employees serve a 6-month probationary trial period. Particularly in police and fire, those employees who are involved in academy work or what have you serve a 12-month probationary period. And when someone is confirmed to regular status, presuming they are, then they receive due process rights. In other words, at that point in time, they're deemed to have property rights interest in their job. Our personnel policy currently basically says that if an employee is promoted or transferred and they're unsuccessful in that new position, they have the ability, if available, to move back to their old position if it's still there, or to be handled as otherwise provided in the policy. Very practically speaking, if an employee has been promoted or transferred and the position has been backfilled and there's no other place to put the employee, then termination very well may be what takes place. We do a lot of work making sure that we promote our employees that we believe are going to be successful. We encourage our supervisors to always do our part in helping all of our employees, whether brand new or transfer, to be successful. This policy provision proposes to say that when you promote or transfer or demote, you're really in a new position, and therefore you're going to be going back into probation like a new employee. So the technical differentiation between what the first scenario I explained, but it is a change, but it's not something that's unusual in city government. So employees have due process rights once they passed initial probation, and this proposal says if they promote or transfer or demote, then they would return to that original status for the duration of that, which typically is going to be 6 months. There's never a promotional process that requires 1 year, except if somebody might, for example, be going from the civilian ranks to the uniform ranks, and they'd be going into academy. So that's this proposal, and it is a change.
Anybody have any questions on that?
I guess
Mr. Powell?
the same question I've been asking on several of them. What, if somebody's terminated with no fault of their own because of the circumstances, what do you do then? They could go to sue the city, or how does that work?
To your specific question, Councilmember Powell, if someone is terminated through no fault of their own,
Right.
that's typically going to be a reduction in force. I can't remember a circumstance where there was some other kind of termination that was not for cause. As a matter of fact, depending on the department or the classification of the employee, we have a for-cause burden, if you will. It's a situation where we thought enough of an employee to promote. We're going to, and for some reason it just wasn't successful, we're going to try to place that employee. And particularly when we have somebody in some of our departments where there's not a lot of promotional opportunities and they've been with us for a long period of time, and one comes up, they've been with us a long time, we think they're going to make it, but for some reason they don't. We're going to really try to find a place to put them. And occasionally we've got really unusual and unique circumstances. I've been in a situation before where the city managers allowed the department to run long, if you will, to run with an extra employee because we knew somebody was leaving by retirement or what have you, so that we didn't have to cut that employee loose. So we really do try to do everything we can to make everything go well. So we just don't terminate employees without cause.
We do that now, don't we? With the police department? Don't we do that now where we allow them to have extra, like in the academy, because we know somebody's going to retire?
Mr. Mayor, it's a bit of a different circumstance because what Mr. Barber is reporting today is really more focused on
If you let 'em
promotional
go.
opportunity. But yes, we're ultimately allowing for employees, for additional bodies, if you will, so that we can stay ahead of the academy situation. Yes.
That's the other way around. That's not, but so it really is very efficient. And I think during our budget session last week, in all of my years, I don't think that the police department has ever been so consistently staffed well as is in the last year and a half when I've been here. So kudos to those folks. And then the last item involves our PTO and our sick leave buyback program. We've had this program for years and years and years. We had the sick leave program, and then we transitioned to PTO. And we allow employees to redeem or to sell back unused accrued leave time every year. Last year, we became aware of our need to adjust our policy so that we don't run afoul of some provisions of the IRS code. And so what we're doing in the personnel policy is we're taking out all of the specifics that will allow us to craft the policy, to continue to do it, but craft it outside of the policy. As the policy proposal says, we're going to continue to do it as outlined by the city manager each year. So we're going to make a couple of adjustments, and we have a lot of time to let our employees know that. Typically, what we've done is gone through the end of the calendar year, and then paid it out in January. And there's some technical things with the IRS regs. We're going to have to change that a little bit and do a payout later in the year. So, but the policy amendment is necessary to get the specifics. We're doing this to allow us to comply. Those are the highlights. Do I stand to answer any questions, or?
Anyone have any questions? I think they kind of asked them as you went along, so.
Could you start from the beginning again? No, I'm just.
So will
Bob,
we
go
be
ahead.
voting on this at a future meeting?
Thank you, and I was about to say that. It's our intent to bring the policy back to you, to bring these back to you next month for approval
Okay.
in the month of June.
Will the employees be made aware of this?
We've
This,
reviewed it with the EEG. Our department directors have had copies of it. But we would not typically send these out to our employees in advance of your action. But we will be making sure that our employees know about it afterwards. For example, in the drug and alcohol testing, we have to train our supervisors that deal with CDLs. We have to train them now. We're going to make sure that we reach out to all of our supervisors after the policy is presuming the policy is passed, and give them the basic reasonable suspicion training so that they're better able to recognize the signs of impairment in the workplace. So there's some things we're going to need to do in terms of training after adoption.
Yeah, typically, a employee policy is set by management and then given to the employees. I mean, you might want some input, but in general, that's a management decision, and I think that's what we're here for.
And the internally, do all employees, after everything's voted on though, all of them receive it internally, all the updates, so that, and it's their responsibility to read and update?
We will be developing information things to send out to employees. We hope our EEG is the stands between the departments and management. But we're going to try to get that information out. Some of these are not impactful really on the day-to-day operation, but some of them are, and we'll make sure that information gets out to our employees. And again, these are policies, and we bring them to you for approval. The administrative directives are those that are promulgated and approved by the city manager, but these are policies that you approve. So these are the city's policies.
Right.
So, thanks for your time.
Okay,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Scott. I think the next item on the agenda is the police department and body cameras. Lisa's favorite subject.
She flew back just for this.
I hope so.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're going to do this with two of us, since Scott's done the yeoman work of, amount of work in this compared to everybody else. I'm not going to read every PowerPoint, but Scott put together a PowerPoint on the digital evidence and body-worn camera implementation that we, that's the wrong way. First, an overview of where we're at today with Tulsa Police, Tulsa. Casa Grande Police Department.
This is why I'm here to kick him in the
It
shins.
is. We have no body-worn camera. We have a dash camera system that requires manual download and sharing, which means if somebody wants to copy that, somebody has to physically go in, download it, make a disk, and then pass it on. Same thing with our interview cameras in our interview rooms. We also, our digital server right now for the in-car camera is on a server. We're going to go to cloud-based. Sharing digital evidence right now requires us burning DVDs. It requires employee time. Scott will touch on a little point in here with evidence.com, where Brett's office, county attorney's office, and any other agency that has the body-worn camera system that we're bringing in front of you tonight, they'll be able to draw that out themselves. We currently have an OptiView for our documents. That will be obsolete. We won't be using that anymore. It's more efficient. I'm not gonna read all these, but basically our proposal, and we've came in front of you all before and talked about the, do we get 60, do we get 40, do we implement these at stages? I think across the country, people are finding out, departments are finding out that if you're gonna go in, go all in. And that's obviously what we have mentioned to council on our previous visits here. We're asking for 95 total body-worn cameras. That's gonna cover 84 sworn officers. The additional of the 4 is what Mr. Raines had talked about previously, and Mr. Barber about our 4 over our authorized strength due to the drop. It'll give us 5 stationary for our community service officers who do our prisoner transports, and plus it'll provide us with 6 spares. There'll be 97 licenses for access on the evidence.com, and Lieutenant Shervin will get to what evidence.com is in the next slide, or upcoming slide. But 2 of those will be for people in records to be able to download evidence and hand them out. A big part of the Axon program is the body camera hardware replacement. You get them replaced at month 30 and month 60, which means that our officers will have the most current, up-to-date things that Axon has available, cameras. There's unlimited storage for body camera footage. If we decide at some point to go away from Axon, we own our data. We don't have to buy it back from Axon. There's a big redaction tool set in there that makes it easy to redact, because there'll be a lot of redaction going, because we anticipate quite a bit of inquiries about public records requests for cameras until they find out that really there's not a whole lot there until we have a critical incident or something along those lines. It'll be from the time we get the okay on this, if we get the okay on this, it'll be a 2 to 4 month implementation plan from the date that we actually purchase these cameras and the hardware. I think it's one thing that's important is that Scott has staffed a policy amongst our command staff, and we have a policy, a draft policy currently in place that has been sent back and forth amongst our command staff probably 3 or 4 times and reviewed to the point that we're pretty comfortable with that. Eventually that draft won't require much tweaking to be our final body-worn camera policy. We're making a policy solely on body-worn cameras too, by the way. We're not gonna integrate it with our dash camera or our recording policy, because we figure once we get these, this will be the one policy that'll come under most scrutiny from the public, internally, and everything else. There is a quick picture of the latest model, the Axon Body 3. The key features to that is they've really come a long way in the low light performance, where a lot of our work is at night, so the pictures come up better. The 12-hour, the full shift battery, each battery or each charge will last 12 hours, so that'll extend over if people get on a scene for overtime. They won't have to worry about not being able to film when they need to. It's got a 64 gigabyte memory. Very simple to operate, good security system, and it does not take that long to recharge and upload the video from that. The technology assurance plan, as I touched on that a little bit already, but it's a 5-year warranty on all body camera and docking station hardware, and that includes the spares that we're getting. Anytime we need to return anything to be fixed or anything, we don't necessarily need to talk to an individual. We can do that through evidence.com, contact their rep, we pack it up, we ship it, and it comes back to us. And again, the big point is all 95 body cameras and 13 docking stations will be replaced at no additional cost at the 30-month and the 60-month mark. And again, this ensures that our people are going to be having the most up-to-date equipment available to them from Axon. I'm going to let Scott talk about evidence.com for you.
Chief, I just had a question. I've never seen how the body camera goes on to the uniform or whatever. Is there a harness for it, or how does that work to stabilize it?
There's several different mounting options
Okay.
because officers have different type of vests. Some have their
Okay.
uniform shirts like this and the vest underneath it, and then some have the outer carriers, and there's two different types of outer carriers. Once we implement the program, we're gonna actually have to send out the information to all the staff and show them, because I'll be sent the different carrier types, and each officer's gonna have to be able to pick the one that they want to choose to carry when they're on duty.
Good.
And Dick, we're gonna pick where they put them. I mean, we're not gonna have one carry them on their belt, one carry them over here.
Yeah.
We're gonna, as part of our policy, it's gonna tell them where these body cameras are, so that way we have consistent footage on different scenes.
One of the reasons I wanted to present this section is this is the area that excites me the most about actually Axon's evidence.com, is because it allows us to be able to put all our audio and video evidence, not just from the body cameras, but if you have an officer that's at a Circle K and they get that footage of somebody coming into the store, stealing beer or anything like that, anywhere they go, you can just send them a link, whether it's on their cell phone or their email, and they'll be able to download that video straight into their evidence.com account. And it's just gonna be very useful, like our WatchGuard cameras right now. We gotta make discs and do things the old-fashioned way, where we're burning CDs. And at this point in time, once the officers get evidence.com, they'll be able to upload the dash cam footage, put it right into the digital evidence. And if you just go to the next slide, actually, because if you can see all the different uses right here, it's talking about each one. Each one of these uses they can put into evidence.com. Matter of fact, when it comes to officers, and especially detectives and the records personnel, when they see this and the capabilities that they've been shown on this, on how it's gonna make them much more efficient and take away from our staff time, as far as Brett's office having to download any type of evidence for prosecution purposes, and the county attorney's office, they're already familiar with it. If they need any type of evidence, digital, whatever, they just drop and drag it into the county attorney's portal, and then they look at it immediately. Then we can also share it with other agencies that are using Axon. So this is a real big deal here, where we're actually killing two birds with one stone. We're not only just getting body-worn cameras, but we're getting the evidence storage feature.
So another big plus on the Axon is what it does in our vehicles. It automatically will activate the body-worn camera when the vehicle light bar is on, when our canine officers release the canine door. And a feature that Scott found really valuable when he came to us, and we all agreed on it, was it has a Bluetooth capability that if I get out of my car and my body-worn camera is not activated as soon as I get out of the car due to the circumstances or the dynamics that I face, and Scott gets out of his car and his is activated, the Bluetooth automatically turns my recording on. So anybody that's within that area or at that scene, their body-worn camera will automatically be activated if one person's camera is on. So it'll eliminate some of the errors, because we do expect, I'll be honest with you, we do expect it. It's something new, and we're gonna expect a little, some issues with it initially, but that one piece of what they do, what these cameras do, that's gonna help us a lot reduce those errors. We've already talked about the sharing of evidence. Pinell County's Attorney's Office already has evidence.com. Brett's office gets a license for it, and any other law enforcement agencies using Axon can receive evidence from us. It's more efficient. We won't have to have some of our records people make the copies and make sure the copies get somewhere, and then what happens to the copies and things like that. So it's a lot more efficient when sharing evidence with prosecution and other agencies. Scott, why don't you talk about this since you put that together? I'll talk about it.
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you.
Nice one. Nobody likes to talk about money. But I will say one thing. The price of these body cameras over the years, and we talked about it at our council retreat, has decreased. It's made it more manageable for agencies our size and cities our size to get into the game, so to speak. So with the 95 cameras on a full deployment, the first year cost for the camera part and the Axon part is $126,385.53. And then you can see the final breakdown year to year, with the grand total of a 5-year plan being roughly $640,000.
Then the last thing I want to add in there is one of the biggest costs associated with it is actually the cloud storage for the evidence itself. And it's not only the body-worn cameras that we're getting, it's the full-featured use that we're going to have of evidence.com for everybody in the department, not just officers, but our records clerks, CSOs, our ID techs and such. Everybody will have access to this system.
So Chief, that cost is for everything?
That cost is for the equipment part that we're purchasing. There'll be another slide here to talk to additional employee costs as well as Aaron's additional cost for.
But
Does this include the
cloud, this
storage?
cloud though, this is the storage piece too, and this is all in that number?
Yes.
Okay, that was what I was asking.
Okay, yes. Additional personnel costs, speaking for Brett's office, they would ask for and require a paralegal position for the city attorney's office to manage the public records requests. Like we said, we expect to be inundated with those, especially right off the bat. Also help with the prosecution-related functions. We'd request an additional public service records clerk position to oversee the program, to work with, I believe, and I'm not speaking out of school for Aaron and their crew, to work with Steve Corral and on IT issues and things that we'll need done to support all the body-worn camera training, the redacting, things along those lines. That's the total yearly cost for those two positions with the EREs rolled in, up and through year 5. Mayor, what you said about where I misunderstood you on the additional cost for our network infrastructure, Aaron is laid out the 5-year cost for that, and then on the chart or the numbers on the right for additional staff and infrastructure, that's for computer stations, things like that. Eventually, we would hope to. We currently have WatchGuard in our dash cams. And if you all remember, we did that for economic reasons, plus it's a good product. Eventually, on the new builds, and when those other ones phase out, we would try to get under one umbrella of Axon and try their dash cams as well as the body cams, so everything relates to each other and works together.
Then the last line on the slide, just to speak about the Tyler technologies that we currently have. Axon does integrate with it. There's several agencies across the country, a majority of agencies across the country utilize Axon, and it will integrate with that system.
So the annual projected cost of this program, that's the totals.
Okay.
That's the 5-year yearly totals for this. And before I answer any more questions, I will say, one thing different about this presentation from the other ones that we came before you on, this was a total team effort. We worked very closely with Brett's office. Aaron, Card, and the IT people were right there giving us guidance and support and put their input in it. So that's why when I said at our council retreat, I feel pretty comfortable coming to you all with this. This isn't a police department proposal per se. It's involved 3 other departments within the city. So we're all on board on this. We all support this. We all think we can manage this, make it work well. And that's why I think this is a little bit, other than the cost being a little bit lower, which everybody likes, that's why I feel a little bit better coming to y'all with this proposal than we have in the past.
Chief, can you go back to the total cost page? Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody have any questions?
I have a comment, more than a question, but I think that one of the things, when people look at these numbers, it does look like a lot, but I think that in the best interest of our community and the officers, we need this. But aside from some of the things you said, Scott, about how we have so many different people within the department happening to do all that work, I think we're gonna save some money, and we can't really put a number on what we're gonna save as far as all the different people, in the police department that has to help by manually making copies and all that stuff. So I think that, there's going to be some offset there, but the efficiency of our staff is going to improve greatly with this.
Jeff, you had a question?
Did I understand correctly, the camera only comes on when you're on an active call? It's not constantly running the whole shift?
This camera can't recreate an event. Like our, well, it does go back, so go ahead on time. But it can't recreate event. Like currently our dash cams can recreate event.
Right.
It can go back and create event that happened an hour ago.
But it's not constantly recording, it's only.
No, but go ahead, Scott, I know.
Right now, the way it's set up is we're probably gonna have it maybe 30 to 60 seconds pre-record, so when you turn it on, it'll capture, what happened 30 seconds before. And right now, it has the capabilities of going back 2 minutes. However, like the chief was saying about WatchGuard, where it has a ability to be able to draw out something that happened during the shift, that is something that is up and coming with Axon that I do believe will happen before the end of this 5-year program's done.
Matt?
Speaking of the 5 years, it says they replace all of the hardware at month 60. So is that then we own it and we have to pay for repairs at that point, or?
No,
Or we
that's,
just keep, it's just included as long as we keep rolling over?
yeah, as long as we roll over, and that's one of the nice things about it is at 30 month, if the Axon 4 comes out, we get that for free. We just get everything upgraded, and it's not just the body worn cameras, it's also the cradles that come with it. So at 30 month and 60 month,
So
we
the
get all
full
new
system.
equipment, the whole new equipment at no cost because we're already paying for it. So you're not only just buying one camera for 3 years, you're actually getting 3 per person.
It's not at no cost, but.
Well, you're paying for it up
It's an
front.
ongoing
No
cost.
additional cost, yeah.
Yeah.
But we know what that cost is gonna be. It's
Right.
budgeted, and I'm sure this will
Yep.
be in the replacement program. I mean, or however that's gonna work, because it's an ongoing cost. And then, like you said, I appreciate what you said
It's
about
like
the
vehicles.
redactions, because that was one of my biggest fears about all this, is people just making requests, and like you expect it, but we're not the first community to do this, so I'm sure there's plenty of studies and data how to do that. And also, I think when we have a big incident, like when you see on the news, they usually release the footage to everybody, so you don't have to answer 800, requests for that, right? Is that usually how it works? Like if it's something critical that people are gonna be
When able
requesting?
to, yes.
And then,
Depending on the situation, yeah.
yeah, I mean, stuff that you can release, yeah.
Yes.
And then our drones, I guess, would go in with this too, with the storage of the data and the footage and.
Axon, the evidence.com
Yeah.
will be able to accept the storage data from the drones.
And I mean, I've come a long way personally too. I think it's a great idea. I never didn't think it was great, but now we finally have the whole system and affordable, and we're at a good place to where we don't have to roll it out in phases. Everybody's gonna start at the same time, and it's not gonna be haves and have-nots or people that don't want it. But how are the officers feeling about this? Is it pretty positive overall?
Well, and kind of like Scott, Mr. Barber said, we don't go out and poll everybody on stuff like this.
Right? That's our policy now.
But I think that officers, the vast majority of officers are ready for this because the body cameras originally were pushed out to keep the police clean, I guess you would say.
This protects them, yeah.
But I think officers now, as time goes on and they see the body cameras, they actually think that that's really something to help them out against false claims and things like that. And you can actually show what happened. Keep in mind that the body camera doesn't catch everything. That's one thing that people are, I think, believe that's not true. But it is a tool for our officers to protect them, and I think the majority of our officers that we've talked to, and I really haven't talked to anybody, I don't know if Scott has, that was against it, I think they're ready for it. And I think it'll be a good thing for us, honestly.
Lisa?
And just to add to that, I've talked to other agencies, and that is a big concern with every agency pretty much that's ever implemented the body-worn cameras. But after they've been implemented, a majority of the officers, they like having them because, one, it protects them against false complaints. Two, it helps them to more accurately write reports, and it really helps in their prosecution because now when you roll up on a scene, it's not just you writing a report. If your body camera happens to catch some of it or some of the interviews or whatever happened at that point in time, Now you actually have video evidence to be able to submit to the prosecutors.
Yeah, and real quick, the policy sounds great with the position, you know, you guys have thought that all through, and the unlimited storage, because that was always a big concern too. But that we have I mean, we're paying for it, but we don't have to worry about it, so thank you guys.
Lisa?
And I just wanted to thank you guys. I mean, I know, you know, it's something obviously that I've, you know, just discussed and advocated for the city. And I've just seen over the years how much, you know, the times have changed, and especially technology with the body cams. I mean, it was years ago, Larry, we had probably at least 6 years ago when we had our first presentation where they had them on the glasses. I don't know, Scott, if you were there, or Brian, if you were at that presentation, but it was on the glasses here. And so, of course, you know, it's taken us some time. You know, the community has asked why we haven't had them, and I think you guys have done a great job showing, you know, the expense, because a lot of people think it's just the cost of the body cam, and why can't the city just get them? It's just the cost, but there's so much more involved. And so I'm just so happy to see, you know, the different departments coming together. You know, this is going to be great for, you know, not only our community, but our officers, the safety, and you know, for the officers and the community. So I'm just really pleased we're moving forward with this, and I really thank you. And, you know, Chief, I know you and I have had a lot of discussions on this, and Larry, and I know your staff has worked really hard to make sure that we are, you know, putting together a very, you know, just detailed and great policy and program. So I'm just really pleased, and I look forward to it, especially in today's, you know, climate, you know, with what's happening in police departments. I just think this protects us and the liability of the city, and I'm just really looking forward to it, and I really thank you for the details that you've provided us.
Bob?
I actually had two questions. Back to the 5-year equipment costs. Are we getting 95 right up front?
We're gonna get 95, then at 30 months, we're gonna get another 95, then at 60 months, we're gonna get another 95.
Okay.
And the cradles.
I think I was confused with the repeated cost every 5 years. Is that paying for the ones we already got, or?
Well, we showed you the 5-year contract,
Yes.
and at the end of this 5-year contract, we'll have to come before council, and there'll be negotiations again with Axon, but I don't see it being, you know,
So we're not
large cost.
we're not paying up front for the full 95. We're contracting to pay a certain amount each year so that we have 95.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And could you, I hate to have you go into a lot of detail, but could you run me through an average day? An officer has his camera, he goes on routine calls. Camera may or may not have been activated on some of those. Does he download that at the end of the shift, or what happens?
He can download it anytime, he or she can download it anytime during their shift, but basically our policy outlines when a camera has to be on. But to put it in a nutshell, in a simple way to explain it is, anytime we feel, or an officer feels that they have to take official police action, that camera comes on. Now granted, there'll be times when they'll be able to turn it off, if they're developing a CI, just things like that, but that's all spelled out in the policy. But the, you know, the basic part of our policy is anytime you're gonna take official police action, that body camera has to be on.
Okay.
So if I see you riding your bicycle and I wanna get out and don't talk to you as acquaintances, but talk to you as, what are you doing, it's on.
Okay. And in that case, it would be downloaded? Okay.
Actually, everything that you have is going to be downloaded into the Cradle, and it's going to be uploaded to the cloud. So if you turn it on, it's going to, you got to tag it with this event, regardless if you write a report or not. And then, according to the state archives, okay, if it's a non-event, 60 days from now, it might get kicked, and then
Okay.
it's purged, or if it's used for a misdemeanor, it could be held for 5 years. If it's some felony, it could be 100 years. So to answer your question, yeah, everything's going to be downloaded, and it's going to be important for the officers to tag them, and they'll be purged according to the timelines, according to policy and state law.
Okay. All right, thank you, and just congratulations on this. I think, fortunately or not, It's just expected nowadays, and I can foresee the day, I hope it never comes, but where there'll be an incident, and if we don't have these, people will say, well, why don't you have body cams? I think it's becoming more and more the norm that agencies have them. So thank you very much, and congratulations on it. Glad to see it.
I have a question and a comment. The additional employee that's going to be brought on, what basically do they do?
They're gonna do everything that's associated with that body worn camera. They're gonna help with the redaction, they're gonna help with the open records requests, anything that has to do with the camera. But if you remember, that one thing that hasn't changed from one of our previous presentations is that we're making that position a records clerk position, so that if there isn't enough, which I don't anticipate happening, if there isn't enough activity to keep them busy on a body worn camera
Way to keep them busy.
project, they'll be assisting with the regular records clerk's functions.
Well, I just would like to say, I've been proud of our police department. I can't believe people that say defund the police. That's the most ignorant statement you can make. But I'm very proud of what we have. I think this gives us a step beyond as far as our professionalism and our ability to protect officers and the people that are being dealing with a police officer, make sure it's good on both ends. But as I say, I'm really proud of what you guys do, and I thank you.
Donna?
Just a final follow-up question. You've mentioned policy a couple times. When it is ready to roll out, has it been looked at from our city attorney's office just for clarity, or are you expecting to do that?
Well, we'll let, on this one, since it's gonna touch some of Brett's office, at some point, we'll let Brett look at it, but normally Brett doesn't approve our policies, but,
Okay.
on this one, since it's, goes from between departments, we'll give it to him for certain, him and Mark to, make their comments and make some suggestions based on their knowledge and their skill set as far as the prosecution part of things.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no further questions. I just have a comment. I just wanted to say thank you to your department. I think you guys are doing a great job. Understand it's $1.5 million of taxpayers' monies, so please take care of it and make sure it gets used properly. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, just to close the conversation, to give the mayor and council a perspective of the next steps on this particular project. Obviously, this is something that we're adding into our fiscal year 22 budget. So once the mayor and council considers and potentially adopts the tentative budget on June 7th, we will essentially begin to ramp up the necessary procurement components that will have to come back to the mayor and council, which you'll likely see in July or August.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we'll stand adjourned for, well, we'll give ourselves 5 minutes, so we'll start at 3 minutes after 7. You come back, we'll get started.
Yes, sir.
I gave you 4 minutes, or no, 6 minutes.
Lisa, you may have won the race, so
I did?
I think
wonder-
you did, but you've got a contender right beside you there, so.
What's he say?
All right, call the meeting to order tonight. This is the city council meeting, regular meeting of May 17th. Call it to order. First order of business is our invocation and our pledge of allegiance. Please remain standing, but tonight we have Pastor Anthony Edwards from the First Presbyterian Church. Pastor, if you would, please.
Let us pray. Father God, we come to you and we thank you, Lord, for life, health, and strength. We thank you, Lord, for another light of day, Father, that we're able to see. We thank you for this opportunity as we come together, Father, for our city and our community, Father, and we just pray for our mayor as well as all of our council members, that you would touch them with wisdom and knowledge as we move forward with the agenda of tonight. But Father, we wanted to recognize you and thank you for all the things that you have already done in the city of Casa Grande, all the things that you're going to do, and all the things that you're doing right now that we don't see, nor do we realize or recognize that it's you working behind the scenes. So we thank you and we honor you, and we just pray that we continue to walk in wisdom and knowledge, that at the end of the day, it'll be well done with you. So we thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor.
Still in the community, thank you.
Go Cardinals, too.
Go Cougars.
Oh, yeah, there's that other team too, but.
Thank you, Bob. He works with some other team, too. I think Cardinals or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let the roll call show that all members of the council are present.
So noted.
Mayor McFarland, regarding our minutes, I move approval of the city council regular meeting minutes from May 3rd as presented, and that we accept for the record the Planning and Zoning Commission minutes from April 1st and the Art and Humanities Commission minutes from April 6th as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Next is claims.
Mayor McFarland, I move to accept and pay the claims dated April 28th to May 11th, 2021 as presented.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the claims. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I abstain.
Okay. Note Lisa Fitzgibbons abstained. Item E is the meeting agenda approval. So Larry, any changes from staff or anything from council? Okay, seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Approval as presented.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved as presented. We have no special presentations tonight, so we'll move to consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion and one roll call vote of the council. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. Does anybody have anything that you want to pull off? Anybody from the public? Okay,
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
all right, I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Councilmember Powell,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. The public comments, can I make a comment on this section, Larry, since it's been scratched? Actually, I should have asked Brett.
I think you can certainly comment on things, but we can't ask for comments from the public.
Right,
because
I
it's
wasn't
not
going to ask for a comment, I just wanted to give some clarification. The public comments have been taken off because of the pandemic and the COVID protocols that we've been following. So I was going to do this in my reports, but I could do it now. We're going to look at, we are going to probably change our protocols effective June 1st. That means that by the June 7th City Council meeting, we will resume public comments. They will be back on the agenda, so I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that. We're also going to change the capacities in here as long as things continue the way they have been, which has been looking good. So just look for that information. We'll probably get it out through our PIO here in the next week or two. All right, moving then to item I, which is our awards of contracts, and considering ordinance, or I-1, which is ordinance number 3267.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this item before you will renew a managed print services agreement between the City of Casa Grande and Xerox Business Solutions. This is a 5-year agreement under Arizona State Contract ADSP 018-216033 and the SAFE Contract 2011113. This agreement has a better cost structure than the current agreement that we're under the Mojave Cooperative. This month, the month-to-month spend will drop from $7,789 to $5,869, resulting in monthly savings of $1,920. This will refresh.
Something went down. Thank you.
Yes. This will refresh multi-function printer hardware that is showing its age without a steep initial investment. The estimate for this investment is $170,492. This contract seeks also to standardize multi-function printer hardware across 21 facilities and consolidate smaller HP printers where opportunities exist. It will introduce flexible printing and other features that are expected to reduce overall print volume by approximately 30% over time. Currently, we have multi-function printers. We have a count of 35. And HP desktop printers, we have a count of 83. We're seeking to reduce that count for multi-function printers to 24 and HP desktop printers to 55. And that's providing more state-of-the-art functionalities across 21 facilities. After evaluation of the value and terms, staff determined that the quoted price was a good rate to provide managed print services to the city with updated hardware and functionalities. We recommend accepting the contract with a total not to exceed the cost of $441,617, including sales tax and contingency, for a 5-year term. I will entertain your questions if you have any. I also invited our IT manager, Aaron, to sit in on this meeting to address any questions you have that may be IT related.
Anybody have any questions?
It's a
Just
savings.
A note, Mojave is out of this now, aren't they? With what
Yes,
we're
they will
doing?
be out once the
Yeah.
contract, yes,
Yeah.
once the contract is signed and initiated.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions or comments, then I'll call for an ordinance number, please, Carla. Almost called you Gloria.
Ordinance number 3267, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting a bid from Xerox Business Solutions for the purpose of managed print services, authorizing the expenditure of public funds, and authorizing the execution of a contract with or purchase order to Xerox Business Solutions.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for approval of ordinance 3267 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Councilmember Powell,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, the next item is I-2, consider ordinance number 3268. Mr. Lewis?
Good evening. With your permission, I'd like to cover the next three items in one discussion, and then you can take action on them separately if that's okay.
That would be great, thank you.
Mayor, City Council, this is our annual on-call contracts process. We've gone through the request for qualifications on 3 programs. The first one is our on-call maintenance and repair services program. This is for our Public Works Department working on larger projects throughout the community, and it's also available for other departments to take advantage of, like the Parks Department, golf course, anybody doing some of those larger projects. This could include small paving projects, concrete work, those types of things. Not to be confused with our facilities maintenance contract and repair services, which is more for our facilities. That's the indoor stuff, carpentry, HVAC systems, lighting systems, plumbing, those types of things. And then our third one, which is our professional services contract, and that's for us to go out and hire the people who do consulting services for us. And again, all 3 of these programs have been very successful. The I-2 is the maintenance and repair services. That's going to be 28 different contracts, so you'll be approving all of those contracts tonight, and then none of those contracts will be moved forward with unless we negotiate a price, scope, and fee for any of those projects. And then the appropriate budget has to have that authority to move forward with that project. And the limits on that is no single project of $24,999, and then an annual aggregate over $150,000 for any single contractor. With the professional services, we are able to use a higher limit, and that is $100,000 for any single contract and no more than $150,000 for aggregate. And of course, consulting services with those projects, and with the number of projects that we have coming up and needing to react to in pretty short order to meet some of the timelines that we're facing with some of the developments, this really gives us the flexibility to move forward in a quick fashion to get things completed. And then the last one has the, for the facilities, has the same $24,999 per contract, and then no aggregate over $150. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any idea of how many of the, up to, I think you said 35, any idea of how many are local?
I don't right offhand. I know that a majority of the contracts, or at least a good portion of the contracts in our facilities maintenance, those are locals, and we always try to reach out to our local vendors first to make sure that they have the capability of moving forward with the project before we go out of town. But we do try to use our local folks
Thank you.
as much as we can.
Anyone else have any questions?
Mayor, I have a quick one.
Sure.
So I know we've done this for several years. Do you, I mean, you must not get complaints because you've done it for so long, but the only thing I worry about is someone may have missed it and they're not on the list, and, you know, they missed it a couple of years. So I'm assuming no, since you've done this for so many years, that people
We
don't,
get,
aren't
we get
concerned?
lots of complaints.
Oh,
So we've worked very diligently with our local contractors to make sure they know when things are coming out. And if we have contracts that we want to move forward with in the future, we make sure that those firms or those contractors know about this in advance. Everyone who signs up through the city clerk's portal that, is interested in taking advantage of these opportunities gets notice. It's typically somebody dropping the ball, okay? So we've done our best to make sure that people who want to be part of this program have the information they need to be part of it.
Well, and I think that's my concern. I just want to make sure that the communication is out there. But I would think since we've done this for several years, they may have learned the first year or second year, the way the process works. So I would hope that they would catch on after a couple of years, because I know we've done this for a while.
They need to go onto our website, right?
Exactly.
And if anybody goes onto our website, the first thing that pops up is, hey, do you want us to continue to communicate with you? And if you don't click yes, you're not gonna get notifications.
Right.
So people have to get
Right.
involved. And
Yeah, the other complaint that we get is we don't use some contractors.
Right.
There's no guarantee that we'll use someone. It's, if we need them, they're there for us, and we have the contract in place for us to move forward with those negotiations and then move forward with the project. We've found it very successful program so far. We'd love to see the limits higher, but we have a little thing called our city charter that kind of limits us, as our city attorney will remind us every time we submit for higher amounts. But that is one thing that we're looking forward to. The other thing I'm looking forward to is if we ever do, as we discussed in the council retreat, about bringing a procurement person on. This is something that we're going to make sure they understand and help us run it, and maybe clean up some of the issues that we've had with, staff maybe dropping the ball here or there.
Good.
And it'll be consistent too, because it'll be the same person
Right.
between all departments. Thank you, Kevin. All right, seeing no further questions or comments, then I'll consider ordinance number 3268.
Ordinance number 3268, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving the terms and conditions of 28 agreements with various companies for the purpose of providing various maintenance and repair services for fiscal year 2022, authorizing expenditure of public funds, and authorizing execution by the city manager of the 28 agreements.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 3268 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Councilmember Powell,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, the next is I3, you've already discussed, right? So we're going to move and consider ordinance number 3269.
Ordinance number 3269, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving the terms and conditions of 35 agreements with various companies for the purpose of providing various professional services for fiscal year 2022, authorizing expenditure of public funds, and authorizing execution by the city manager of the 35 agreements.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 3269 as presented.
Second?
All right, I have a motion.
And I also was happy to do that because there's 35 on mine and there was only 28 on the other one, so.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. All right, having a motion and a second, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Councilmember Powell,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Now, I4 only has 15, Mr. Powell, you're gonna not do that one? All right, so we've had this discussion as well, so we'll consider ordinance number 3270.
Ordinance 3270, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving the terms and conditions of 15 agreements with various companies for the purpose of providing various facilities maintenance and repair services for fiscal year 2021 to 2022, authorizing expenditure of public funds, and authorizing execution by the city manager of the 15 agreements.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 3270 and the 15 agreements, which would bring me up to 43, Councilman Powell.
Touche.
I object.
I second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 3270. Carla, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Sneaky, but yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
It's why he's a school teacher. Yes. All right, next item on our agenda is I-5, consider ordinance number 3271. Kevin, this one's yours too.
I'm going to be here for a little while longer. Staff recommends that the mayor and city council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Sturgeon Electric Company for a base bid amount of $102,088 with a contingency of $2,912 for a total amount of $105,000 for the installation of streetlights within the Cottonwood Gardens subdivision. If you don't already know, Cottonwood Gardens is a subdivision that is just north of Cottonwood Lane and west of Thornton Boulevard. So this neighborhood currently has no streetlights in it, and this is an opportunity for us to use CDBG funds that were originally programmed in 2019 to finish this project. So we've been working towards this point to have these 13 new streetlights installed, and these are solar streetlights. So this is something that we've done on several occasions in other areas where we don't have the infrastructure to take advantage of underground power, so we're using solar in this location. This budget does have, or this project does have adequate budget funded for it through the CDBG program. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Matt?
I got one question, Kevin. How long do these lights last, or the batteries, I guess, is the big issue?
Typically, I don't know specifically about this one, but the solar lights that we've used in the past had a 10-year warranty. But we've been seeing really good performance and everything that we've done with our due diligence on the products. I think we're going to get a lot more than that. And typically, it's not you have to replace the whole thing. It's a component. In Arizona, those are the batteries. But they've come a long ways with batteries. The last time I think I looked 6 years ago, there was a 3-year warranty on batteries, and now they're up to 10. So obviously, things are changing.
Thanks.
Great. Any other questions of Kevin?
I just have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Donna.
And many years ago, we put this development in the city, and it wasn't. And I remember Mr. Powell going to one of the community meetings, because this is where my mother resided. And he met with the citizens, and he really started this process. So they are very appreciative of everything that the city has done for them, including the streets. And this is just another example. So kudos to Mr. Powell for seeing the foresight on that.
Kevin, how many street lights is it going to be?
13.
13? Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, then I'll call for an ordinance number 3271, please. Carla?
Ordinance number 3271, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting a bid from Sturgeon Electric Company Incorporated to provide construction of the program year 2019 Community Development Block Grant Solar-Powered Streetlight Project, authorizing expenditure of public funds, and authorizing the execution of a contract.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 3271 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Can I please get a roll call vote? Carla?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Councilmember Powell,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, that finishes the ayes. Let's go to K. Is ordinance and resolutions and other matters or subjects requiring the action of the council. First item is item K, which is resolution number 5299. Mr.
Thank you.
Lewis.
Staff is recommending that the mayor and city council authorize the city manager to apply for and accept grant funds from the Arizona Department of Transportation, and this is their Aeronautics Division, for runway 523 and connector taxiway pavement preservation in an amount not to exceed $725,000, and to execute all grants, contract documents, distribute funds, and perform necessary budget transfers. The Aeronautics Group, part of ADOT's multimodal planning division, develops a 5-year airport capital improvement program. And the program provides for state-funded grants and approves those projects for state, local funding that have met the state's transportation board's qualifying priority rating. So state aviation funds are distributed, and there's 3 major areas that they distribute these particular funds. It's design construction, which this project is part of that, and then there's also planning and land acquisition. And the State Transportation Board approves the distribution annually. So we're very fortunate to have this opportunity to apply for and receive these grant funds. Hopefully we'll be successful. And this process does kind of move very quickly because there are very short deadlines that we have to meet to take advantage of these funds. There is a 10% match, so the city's portion of this will be $75,500. And with your approval, we'll hopefully get this budgeted for in the next year and move forward with it. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Kevin, will this help us connect to the through the gate piece there, or is this just existing taxiway?
Yeah, this is our main runway, 5 and 23.
Okay.
And it's 5 and 23, 5 degrees north, 23 degrees south. It depends on the direction you're approaching the runway. And then the adjacent taxiway, that'll be the
So
pavement preservation.
it's all existing, right?
It's all existing, so it does not connect to the runway we're currently, or the taxiway we're currently designing.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no other questions or comments, then I'll consider resolution number 5299. Carla?
Resolution number 5299, a resolution of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, ratifying the submission of a grant application to the Arizona Department of Transportation, Multimodal Planning Division, Aeronautics Group, authorizing the city manager to accept grant funds from the program in an amount up to $725,000, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement, authorizing the city finance director to accept and disperse funds as necessary, authorizing the transfer of budget authority, and authorizing other actions in support of the grant.
Mayor McFarland, I would move for approval of resolution number 5299 as presented.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Councilmember Powell,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, K2, consider ordinance number 3272.
Thank you. Staff recommends that the mayor and city council authorize the city manager to participate in the Arizona Department of Transportation's Airport Pavement Preservation Program for asphalt maintenance on Taxiway B, to include a 1-inch asphalt overlay and then pavement markings with a construction estimate of $572,297, and to execute all contracts and documents, distribution of funds, and perform any necessary budget transfers. This is a little different. These aren't discretionary funds. These are pavement preservation funds specifically based on pavement ratings. So I haven't been up here asking for pavement preservation grant fund authorization through ADOT for quite a while because we've not been eligible for those grant funds. We are now back in the good graces of ADOT, and because we haven't had any projects out there, our pavement conditions have really deteriorated. So both of these projects this evening are because ADOT really wants to support the airport and get our pavement back up to standard. So this project, the design for this project is 100% covered, and the construction management by ADOT. And then the construction contract is fully administered by ADOT. We do have a 10% match, which is $57,230 for this project. And I should note that if there are any cost overruns, we are responsible for that at that 10% rate. So ADOT would cover any cost overruns, the entire amount, and then we would reimburse them our 10% share. So it's just important to note that. We've had this stipulation in other contracts, and ADOT's done a really good job of keeping these things within budget. So we feel pretty confident that that won't happen. But if it does, and we don't have the spending authority, we'll be back in front of you asking permission for more. But hopefully that does not happen. Be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone?
So we're back in the pretty good graces, out with the airport, with,
Today with ADOT, yes.
yeah, good.
Sound like a qualifier.
I feel like there should be a qualifier there somewhere. All right, thank you, Kevin. All right, seeing no more questions, then I'll consider an ordinance number 3272, please. Carla?
Ordinance number 3272, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, authorizing participation in the Arizona Department of Transportation's Airport Surface Treatment Program 2022, authorizing the expenditure of public funds, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary on behalf of the City of Casa Grande for the purpose of the Casa Grande Municipal Airport's Taxiway B, Section 20 Pavement Preservation Project, authorizing the city finance director to disperse funds as necessary, and authorizing the transfer of budget authority.
Mayor McFarland, I move for approval of ordinance number 3272 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, we'll move to item L, public hearings. First item is item L1. It's a public hearing and consideration of resolution number 5300, CDBG funds, otherwise known as Community Development Block Grants.
Correct. So this evening, we are presenting our annual action plan, excuse me, for fiscal year 22, program year 21. So we're recommending the approval of the annual action plan as presented. The Office of Housing and Urban Development announced the annual community development entitlement allocation for the city of Casa Grande would be $478,227 for fiscal year 22. In preparation of this year's annual action plan, a public hearing was held virtually on March 9th with 17 participants in attendance. They were able to join us by WebEx, phone, or video. The public notice was published in the English and Spanish in the Dispatch and on our website. Comments received during the public meeting were related to job placement for disabled and low-income, rental and utility assistance, and owner-occupied housing rehabilitation. The CDBG applications were available on our city website and were accepted from March 10th through March 30th. The annual action plan was available for public review comment from April 12th through May 12th online, and we had a copy, a hard copy in our office. No comments were received. The 30-day public review notice was posted in the Dispatch and on our website. Upon review and evaluation of all the submitted applications, the review committee is making the following recommendations to be included in the program year 21 annual action plan. And as you all know, CDBG national objectives are to benefit the low to moderate income persons, aid in the prevention and elimination of slums and blight, and meet a national need. So the recommendations are through the public services, we can allocate up to 15% of the allocation to public services. And these are the recommendations. Seeds of Hope for their continuation of their Senior Connections program for $18,734. The Boys and Girls Club of the Sun Corridor, the Len Cola Summer Program at $13,000. The Casa Grande Police Department, they're going to do a homeless prevention or intervention program, which is new, $11,000. The Opportunity Tree is a continuation of their creative aging program for $10,000. CARA for the Casa Grande Homeless Services for $19,000. So that was for public services. The next recommendation is for City Hall ADA improvements. One of the allocation or eligible activities is to remove barriers to any public facility. So we're looking at changing out the cement, the pavers out front, and the step over by the fountain, because those are risks for our residents to enter into our building. So they will be ADA accessibility. And also to continue on with the owner-occupied housing program and code enforcement and planning and administration. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? This was a little more than last year.
Yeah, we started out last year with 435, and then we ended up getting the additional CARES money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mary. Mr. Powell?
Mayor, I just have a question to ask, and the two ladies and yourself are probably the ones that would know the answer more. The homeless people that you're finding, are they normally families, or are some of them single people that need a place to live? How's that working out? I guess the reason I'm asking, I've seen some of the communities have gone to these small homes that they put together nicely and attractively and put a tree there and but that would be maybe no more than 2 people or something like that.
I really can't answer that question. I know with CARA.
It's both. It's both. It's singles.
All the above.
And couples. You don't see a lot of families because the families typically are taken care of by other organizations. What we see is couples or singles.
Singles, yeah.
Men and women, both. So, I mean, I've been out there. I've counted them. I've talked to them. So, but yeah, the problem, Mr. Powell, some of that is that some of them don't want to move into a house.
No, there's a lot of them that don't want to get
So
off the street.
we're working with CG Cares, with CARA, and we've got some stuff that once we get out of the pandemic, which we're moving out of it now. I think the CARES facility is going to stay open now. We're going to open it 5 days a week. It was only 3 days a week, so we're going to try and push people towards that, and the police are going to help us, so they have a good program here as well. So we're all working together on it.
Mayor?
Yes, Bob?
Can you go back one slide?
Sure.
To where you showed, yeah. I was going to congratulate you on the wide variety of agencies there. I'm glad we're spreading that around. I was familiar with all of them except the Opportunity Tree. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, that used to be called the Arizona Foundation for the Handicap. They're downtown on, I think it's First Street.
Okay.
So they have facilities, so workforce development down there. So anybody that has any kind of developmental delays, they have a wide range of folks that come to that facility.
Okay.
And so, but the creative aging program is anybody that has maybe a diagnosis of dementia or early dementia.
Okay.
So they're trying to do kind of like an art therapy with them for memory.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up question for you, Mary Ellen. On these that are in front of us, I had a question from a community member. So all of them have put in for funding.
Correct.
And when we give them the funding, how do we validate that they've spent the money? Do they have monthly reports or
Yes.
quarterly or? Okay.
Yes, they have a performance report, and then anytime they ask for a reimbursement, they either have to show timesheets or,
Okay.
receipts of,
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Mary?
Just another comment.
Yeah,
You know,
Lisa.
of course, I saw the Casa Grande Police Department, and I was happy to see that because I see that they are really doing a lot on intervention. And so I'm happy to see. that they're getting this support, and I'm not sure exactly how they're gonna use it, but I'm sure they will be using it effectively, so I was excited to see that.
Yeah, we've been helping them with, like vouchers and some other things, so when they find somebody on the street, they can get them into shelter. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mary. Sorry you were last. That's what you get for being a public hearing. So, since this is a public hearing, I will open the floor for public comment. John, nothing? Since you're the only public here.
In person.
Okay. All right, seeing no one rush to the podium, then I will close the public hearing and I will call for a resolution number, please.
Resolution number 5300, a resolution of the Mayor and Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, adopting the Community Development Block Grant CDBG Program Year 2021 Annual Action Plan.
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve resolution number 5300 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Carla, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes?
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Councilmember Powell,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Huddleston,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, that concludes most of tonight's business. Last but not least is our reports. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Lavender.
This afternoon, I traveled down to Tucson to watch Vista Grande play in the state championship softball game. It was an exciting game, but they came up short, 5-4. They rallied in the top of the seventh, similar to the rally they had Thursday night to advance to the game. This is Casa Grande's first team since 1993 that's played for a state title. Rudy Valenzuela did a great job. Those girls worked so hard this year. We were just so proud of them for all their efforts, how they represented our community. But there was an excellent article in the Pinal Central talking about how this group was, how they were developed through our Little League system. And they've been together for so long. So Brett, I know you're involved in that system as well. The Vista boys went to the quarterfinals. Union went to the top 16 in the state. So our programs are in good shape. So congratulations to Coach Valenzuela. Today was his last game, which is sad that he didn't go out a champion with a state title, but he certainly was a champion coach.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything else?
Yep.
Just hats off to Public Work Week. We have close to about 125 employees, so I just want to recognize them this week. Also, thank you to facilities. Our clock is finally working. I think that I hear more about when are you guys going to fix the clock out front, so I'm excited at that. I attended Pinal Partnership Breakfast last Friday. It was our first in-person breakfast, so that was nice. And then also, I just want to reiterate, last Wednesday, for Larry and staff, did an excellent job on our budget retreat. So that's it.
Thank you, Donna. Lisa?
I really don't have anything. I literally flew in from Chicago and made it 2 minutes before I landed at 4:30 and made it here by 6 o'clock, so.
Good job.
I had a busy week moving my
That's
daughter,
impressive.
moving her back home, so I was out of town, so, nothing to report.
All right. Matt?
Yeah, couple things is, there was a great car show and little party in downtown at the Neon Sign Park on Friday evening. Good turnout and quite a few cars, and it was a lot of fun. Went with my dad, so that was even better. And I attended the Budget, Finance, and Economic Development Policy Committee for the League of Arizona Cities, virtually, but there's an interesting one that's coming up. There's about 3 items on the agenda, but the most poignant one was the one, it's actually proposed by Maricopa, but it's to allow cities to change their expenditure limit or their budget midway through the year. And it's more directed towards if you have a big capital need or something that was unforeseen. especially for economic development. You know, if a big company wants to come and you need to expand your sewer treatment plan or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see. So basically, we can push forward policies and try to get them through the state legislature. But it'd be a way for us to kind of have some more local control and help promote economic development and stuff. So, and last not least, the Youth Commission interviews are this coming Saturday, and the kids are excited about ending the school year. And, you know, they're pretty excited they can get together and do more stuff in person now. So, that's
Matt,
it.
thanks for being part of that committee, too.
Yeah.
Mr. Powell?
Well, last week was a very happy week for me. The memorandum that we want to send back to Washington, DC to be looked at and a feasibility study done on it, and hopefully be able to, you know, anybody that's Democrats, they're wanting to do infrastructure. This would be an ideal one. It would put there's 1,000 miles of piping between Davenport and Wyoming Rock Springs. That'd put a whole bunch of those guys back to work again on something, and would have water in it, which is the most mellow ingredient that you can put in a pipe and not have to worry about it. But it had gone through originally through this, in a lot of this, it goes back almost a year to when this systemic pandemic started, and everybody left. Everybody went home, and I don't blame them, you know. But anyway, the House had voted on it, and it was like 53-4 in favor. It went through really big. The first time, and Larry was at that one in the Senate, for some reason it was pretty close, and we found out that somebody had told all the Democrats to vote against this. But it didn't turn out that way, and it got passed by 23-7. So it's on its way to Washington, D.C.
All right.
Right here.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Congratulations, Mr. Powell.
Thank you.
That's a lot of work and well done.
Well, it was, as I say, it's got a long way to go yet on it, but it's got my fingers crossed.
Bob?
Mayor, I had the clock and budget retreat. Thank you to city staff for taking care of those two things, but that's it.
Okay, great. I did want to give Mr. Powell a shout out on this HCM 2004. It is what's called a concurrent memorial, which means it's basically an ordinance that the state of Arizona signs, our Senate and House approve, and then it's sent to Washington, D.C. So it's a big deal. So congratulations, Mr. Powell.
Well, thank you.
One last time, the general plan update, 2030. It's due tomorrow.
There's mine.
Good. Are you going to deliver it? Are you going to hand deliver it?
Yes, I was going to give it to, can I give it to you?
No.
That's illegal.
I think you have to.
I have to mail it?
No, just stick it. Just
Go
take it
to-
over to Cottonwood, to the county.
Oh, it goes to the county?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to the county.
Okay, I was trying to give it to the city.
No, it goes to the county. Make sure you turn in your ballots to the county. County is conducting the election. It's just our election. So it has to be turned in tomorrow by close of business tomorrow at the county office on Cottonwood. If you don't know where that is, it's right next to Safeway. So take it over there, hand deliver it.
You had a
It's a good proclamation. It's a lot of community work's been done on it. And just wanted to give it one last shout out and make sure that you turn in your ballot.
You don't have to do a lot of study to go yes or no on it, do you?
That's it. It's a yes or no question. So I mentioned it earlier, but I want to this is my COVID piece here. So the COVID numbers are down. They look really good. The city of Casa Grande actually is for the first time under 40 infections per 100,000. We're at 36. It's lower than the county and it's lower than the state. So good numbers. keep up the good work, get vaccinated. It's still not too early or too late to get vaccinated. Because our numbers are coming down, it's a direct result of the vaccinations. So please, please, go get vaccinated. Now the challenge is going to be that Dorothy Powell is no longer open for vaccinations. So Sun Life has pulled all the vaccinations back to their health center. But you can get vaccinations pretty much everywhere else. You can go to Walgreens, you can go to CVS, you can go to your doctor. I think in some cases they have the vaccine. So don't not go because we closed the Dorothy Powell Vaccination Center. So get out there, get the vaccine. If you haven't got the second shot, get the second shot. We are going to loosen up our mask requirements in the City Hall if you are vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, we ask that you wear a mask in our public places. So that should be an incentive to go get vaccinated. The CDC has changed their guidelines. I'm sure everybody, if you haven't watched a news broadcast, then you wouldn't know, but the CDC did change their guidelines. If you are vaccinated, you can go maskless indoors and in groups, and the 6-foot spacing has been rescinded. So June 1st is when we were changing all of our hours on our libraries and on our gym, on our community rec center. So that will change as well. So we should be able to increase some of our capacities as long as you're vaccinated. And we'll increase the capacities here in City Hall. So the next City Council meeting on the 7th of June, we will again allow public comment section, so it will be back on the agenda. And then we will also have larger capacity in here as well. So again, if you are vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. If you aren't vaccinated, you need to wear a mask. That's the rule. Now, we're going to leave that up to you to be the police. But again, we ask you to do that for public safety and for the safety of those who, for yourself, if you haven't been vaccinated as well. COVID, CDC, what else have I got? Tomorrow we're doing the mayor's luncheon for the, I'm surprised you didn't mention that.
Faith Alliance, I
Yeah.
know.
For the Faith Alliance. It's because you just got off a plane, I know. So I think it's at 11 o'clock tomorrow at the rec center. It's being hosted by United Way. They're hosting the lunch. But I'll be there, and it should be an interesting meeting. It'll be more about an update, and then community action, some homelessness comments, I'm sure, since I haven't written the speech yet, but I'll be prepared. Also, from testing standpoint, we stopped the testing site at Lencola as well. So if you do need a test, you're going to have to go. I would recommend going to the county's website. They still have all the testing facilities and connections there. Yeah, or there's a ton of them here in town. Walgreens, CVS, they're all doing testing as well. So just make sure that if you do think you need to be tested, to do it and wear a mask. Like I said, June 1st, we'll kind of start to open everything up. I think some of that's been announced. Well, we may modify it a little bit because I think we're going to try and increase some capacities, especially at the rec center. I know I've gotten a few complaints from people and the class sizes and some other things. So if you are all vaccinated, we can increase those class sizes. Is there a common theme here? If you're vaccinated, we'll increase the capacities. If you get vaccinated, we'll increase the capacity sizes. All right. Also, I want to kind of give a shout out to the library. They've got some great programs this summer. We sent out some notifications through the website, but if you need Wi-Fi, you can use your library card at two of our libraries and check out a mobile hotspot. It's free. So they have mobile hotspots that you can check out, especially this summer. Try and avoid the brain drain with kids being at home. And if you don't have Wi-Fi, then get a library card and get one to check out. It's a pretty cool deal. They've got all kinds of stuff. They've got Dial a Story. They have they got these Tales and Tales, which is Tails and Tales, Tales and Tales. It's a kids and teens online summer reading program. So check that out on the library's website. And then we do have a blood drive coming up. City of Casa Grande Employee Wellness Committee is sponsoring a community blood drive on Friday, May 28th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Recommend that you get an appointment. It's at the main library, and the phone number is 877-258-4825, or visit bloodhero.com. That's bloodhero.com if you want to sign up. And that's all I've got. Oh, no, one more thing. Hot off the presses. The building new home permits for the city of Casa Grande. We are at year-to-date 550 building permits. That's a 112% increase over last year. Last year we had 259, and last year was a record year. So at 550 for the first 4 months. I think my number of 2,000 is safe. I think we're going to get there, as long as we don't run out of lumber.
Copper wire now. And paint.
Yeah, and paint. That's the next thing. All right. Anybody else have any last minute, Mr. Powell?
You know, I always have the last minute.
The last
I
word.
just wanted to thank you for what you've done with the COVID situation. You've put a lot into that, and I was, tonight on the news, they found out that Fauci, what's his name? Fauci had invested in that clinic where where this COVID came from. Had money invested in it, so that's a weird deal.
That is a weird deal.
But, and as I say, I just wanted to say thanks to you for what you've done, and
Well,
I
thank
want
you.
to say thank you to John for his. That development is probably solely on your shoulders, right, the increase?
Actually, Larry and I started that 5 years ago. Anyway, all right, thank you. No more comments, then I'll adjourn tonight's meeting. City council meeting is adjourned.
Good job.